Meanwhile, what's going on here? Congressman Charlie Rangel slapped with 13 ethics violations yesterday as he slips further into political and legal trouble. How will these charges and possible trial impact his fellow Democrats heading toward the November election? Join us right now for a fair and balanced debate. Deneen Borelli, senior fellow at Project 21 and Fox News contributor, immigration attorney Michael Wilds, and Anne Marie McAvoy, former federal prosecutor and law professor at Fordham University. Good morning to all of you.
Good morning.
Anne Marie, let me start with you. Looking at these charges against Charlie Rangel, he could go to prison.
He could. And there's a very good possibility that after this is all over, there may well be a criminal investigation that follows. He may, he doesn't have any prior arrests or convictions, so they may work out some sort of a deal where he wouldn't go to prison even if he is found guilty of the charges criminally. But there's a possibility.
Sure. Michael, you're a Democrat. He's bad news for your party.
I am a former mayor, and I have to tell you, I remember almost 30 years ago being on Capitol Hill meeting him personally. A distinguished dean. What happened to the presumption of innocence? Why is it that all the Democrats are retreating right now and nobody's standing forward?
You think he might be innocent?
I'm not saying he's innocent, but this gentleman, after 40 years of service...
These charges came from his peers. This is not a criminal court. These are his pals who said he broke all these rules.
I'm not pleased with my colleagues after what they did to Senator Lieberman, what they're doing to this gentleman, and a lot of other distinguished gentlemen and gentleladies before and after this.
Listen, Charlie Rangel gives a whole new meaning to public service. He wants the public to serve him. He's been in office for 40 years. It's ridiculous.
But the trust that he has had in his community, the delivery to his constituents...
Where's the trust? Harlem is in deplorable conditions.
No, I disagree with that. I have to tell you that the connection that the businesses... You can't undermine a gentleman's service for 40 years.
Michael, how do you forget to pay... How do you forget to report $600,000?
Right.
I forgot.
Give the gentleman a day in court. Give him a day in Congress.
But his day in court is going to destroy your party in the midterms.
So what do we do? Put him on the barbecue at that point and let him roast before he even has that
moment? A lot of people would just say, you know what, this is going to be bad for my legacy. It's going to be bad for my party. I'm going on vacation. Goodbye, everybody.
Yeah, but I believe on principle before, politics. I believe ultimately that the Democrats here have to at least give this distinguished gentleman a day in court.
He writes the tax laws. He is the first person who should be.
So he's going to be brought forward.
Any of us
Anne Marie,
in jail already.
Going back to our first question, how much time could he spend in prison?
It depends. They have to figure out the sentencing guidelines and exactly what he would be charged with, so it's kind of hard to say, but certainly quite a few years, I would think.
Sense of entitlement.
It's a lot of money involved.
He thinks he's above the law.
All right. The panel is off to a good start right now. A good debate. We're going to continue in a moment. Polls show what most Americans want on everything from jobs to immigration, but it appears the president keeps doing the opposite. Will voters return fire in November? And the president heads to Detroit this morning to promote his car bailout, claiming it reshaped the city. But Michigan has the second highest unemployment rate in the country. We're going to talk to his press secretary, Robert Gibbs, in a couple of minutes. Put down the clicker. Fox and Friends rolls on for this Friday. Welcome back. Is President Obama really listening to the American people?
I have heard intelligent people on the left say he's passed all these things, and then they say, and he still has sliding poll ratings. I mean, it's almost funny. He passed all those things, and that's why he has lower and lower poll ratings. It's a direct relationship. It's not enough to simply pass things. You have to pass things that the American people want you to pass.
Yeah, good point. So will President Obama's decision to go after Arizona over its immigration law cost Democrats votes in the midterms? We continue the conversation with our panel. Deneen, what do you think? He's passed a bunch. He's gotten the Congress to do a bunch of stuff, but you look at the polls and you think, maybe people didn't want that.
Congressional approval is what, 11%? I mean, the will of the people is already speaking, so they're not even voting yet. But Obama's only listening to himself. He's not listening to the American people. Obamacare, there's still a prospect of cap and trade legislation. An overwhelming majority of Americans don't want these policies that are taking place.
Michael, with Arizona, it looks to a lot of people, and you look at the polls, 60-70% of the American people like what Arizona is doing. It looks like the president is standing in the way of a state doing what they feel is right to uphold the law while the federal government will not.
I think a lot of people like the moxie of the governor. When the federal government's not doing their job, they're saying that the governor is now doing something in line with what the federal government should be doing. The problem is that no matter what, and no matter how well-intended the governor is, it's still a federal job to do it. and they can't
But
do
the
it.
federal government
They're
isn't
not
doing
But
it.
that doesn't give a
job.
state the right to take the law into their own hands because they don't have the forensic capacity to investigate documents.
Why
and to make
isn't the
these
federal
decisions.
government doing it, Michael?
The government is not doing it. The federal government is not doing it for one simple reason: political expediency. And that's the thesis of our get-together today on politics. The truth is that if they talk effectively on immigration, they look weak in their constituents' minds because of the media and because of the 2-minute campaigns that everybody can run on the war on terrorism. And that's a shame. I just came back from Europe. We look like the laughingstock of the world. We are a nation of immigrants, and yet we can't even fix our immigration system.
But Anne-Marie, we are a nation of laws, and there is a law where we should protect our sovereign borders, and the federal government ain't doing it for us.
And it's a real problem because especially on these border, for these border states, you have a huge problem with violence. You have the kidnappings, you have the, they have murders going on, and also the cost. You have all of these illegal immigrants who are using the services of these states, and they just can't afford it. And something has to be done to close the borders, and people realize that. And people even outside the border states realize that. And I think that Obama's going to take a big hit on this.
You're a former federal prosecutor. Do you get actually, Michael's a former federal prosecutor.
Served together.
In the same office, and today they're prosecuting each other.
No, we're friends.
But Anne-Marie, you look at what she is doing down there, and I say the governor and the legislature down there. Do you get why they're so frustrated? If the federal government's not going to do it, we're going to have to. And now she's suing the government.
Absolutely. And you have about 24 states that are looking to do the same thing. So I think there's no question this will wind up in the Supreme Court because you're going to have some of this. I don't think all the courts are going to agree with what happened in Arizona, and that's only a preliminary decision. It still may wind up going in favor of Arizona and what they've done, and I think it should in the long run.
But it doesn't belong in the
national
courts.
level.
I'm sorry. It doesn't belong in the courts. This should be in the chambers of Congress, not in the federal courthouse. It should be on the White House.
But Congress has been able to do it for years, and they've chosen not to.
And they have to. But that doesn't mean that we're going to allow the midterm elections and the president and everybody else, I'm a Democrat, to get a pass on this by saying it's in the courts.
All right.
It's the will of the American people. And nationwide, you have people who are sending money to support Arizona's legal fund. So overall, the majority of Americans are in favor with this
And
law.
people are
and
frustrated.
our federal government is not doing their job.
I wish we had more time. This is a great debate today. Anne-Marie and Michael and Deneen, we thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.